Welcome to our recap of another fascinating round of the Olympiad. It is round 5 and there are only 4 teams left in the open section with a perfect score. That is India, China, Vietnam, and local heroes Hungary. In today's round, Team India overcame Azerbaijan, powered by beautiful wins for World Championship challenger Gukesh and world number 4 Arjun Erigaisi. It is impressive to mention that both young men have only scored wins at the event so far. In other big matches for the day, China defeated Spain 2.5, 1.5, and local heroes Hungary overcame Ukraine as team leader Richard Rapport beat Vasily Ivanchuk. In personal glory stories of the day, Turkey's Mustafa Yilmaz helped Magnus Carlsen to a draw, Argentina's Diego Flores beat Super GM Lenier Dominguez, and Dennis Kadric defeated rising star Vincent Keymer to bring an upset win for Montenegro versus Germany. Let's dive in. Let's start with the game Gukesh versus Suleymanli from the India versus Azerbaijan match. On the board, we have the position after Black's move 10, namely Knight h5. The idea here is simple. Black wants to exchange the bishop on g3 and then count on the fact that his own bishop from a7 would be super strong. However, this move Knight to h5 has a tactical flaw. In the game, Gukesh paused for a couple minutes and played the move Knight takes e5. The problem is that in case of Knight e5, after bishop takes e5, d takes e5, Queen h5, White would have gained a pawn and retain a huge advantage for the rest of the game. That's why, in this position, Suleymanli played the critical continuation, Knight takes to g3. The game saw bishop f7, king f8, knight g6, king g7, f takes g3. So here, Black has to take the bishop on f7, and after knight h8, queen h8, we have a rather unusual position and a very curious material imbalance. Black has 2 minor pieces, while White has a rook and 2 pawns. Usually, that is a fair exchange, but here there are other specifics of the position that are also important. For example, the Black king is super exposed and is very open to an attack for White. On the other hand, the minor pieces, they are pretty isolated. After the move d4, which happened in the game, it wasn't clear how the bishop from a7 and the knight on c6 are going to get any activity. So let's see the next critical moment of the game and jump to move 34. So here we can tell that almost 15 moves later, the Black pieces haven't made any progress at all. The bishop is still on the same place and the knight on d8 is placed even worse. Well, Gukesh for certain knows how to navigate such tough positional decisions, and he got to a position where he has a full domination. In the last move of the game, Suleymanli played the move g4 as queen takes f5 wasn't possible right away. What would have happened is that in case of queen f5, the game would have ended with queen e7 checkmate. That's why the game saw the continuation g4. But here, it was already too late for Black to save the game. After h6, White created yet another thread that is difficult to counter. I mean, he just wants to play h7 and h8 queen, right? Again, the problem is that queen takes h6 is simply not an option, again because of the move queen e7 checkmate. So instead, the game saw queen takes f5, h7, counting on the fact that if queen h7, there is rook e7, picking up the queen. Black responded with queen b1, and after queen e1 takes, Black resigned. This was as after the only move that prevents the pawn from queening, king g7, White can still grab a full piece and transpose into a trivially winning endgame. The game could have continued with rook e8, king takes h7, rook d8, and in the next couple of moves, White would simply win all the pawns. Let's see the next game. In our next masterpiece of today's round, we're going to take a look at the game Vasily Ivanchuk versus Richard Rapport. In this position, the Ukrainian GM played the move a4, threatening Black's queen. However, Ricci didn't want to escape. He had other plans in mind, as he played the move knight to d3 check. After king d2, he sacrificed a piece with queen b2, king takes d3, and knight to a6. Black's idea is that in exchange for the knight, he has tremendous initiative and already has all sorts of threats. On the next move, if unchallenged, he would go knight c5, he would bring the rooks to c8, the other rook to d8, and Black's attack would simply be unstoppable. For this reason, Ivanchuk played the move rook to c4, countering the threat of knight c5. The game continued with rook a to d8, pinning the bishop and threatening to win it for free after e6. Here, in time trouble, Ivanchuk committed a big mistake. He played the move bishop to e5, counting on the fact that after e6, he would have queen f6 in response. With this move, he would threaten checkmate on both g7 and h8, and at first glance, it appears that this works, that White would be able to win the game as there is no way for Black to defend those squares. This simply is not the case though. The game saw the continuation, rook takes d5, king e4, and here Ricci played the move rook to e5, simply taking the bishop. After king to e5, White is still up material as he has an extra exchange, but his troubles are bigger than that. The king on e5 is very vulnerable and Black's attack simply continues to march on. The game saw queen e2, looking for a better place for the queen, rook d4, and here another fantastic quiet move. Richard played the move knight to b8, aiming to bring the knight to c6 and help the attack against the White's king. Game continued with rook to d6, queen to c4, cutting off the White king on the 4th rank and making sure it never goes back, queen to f4, and actually here, Vasily flagged. He couldn't make the move queen f4 on time, and as he pressed his clock, it showed 0-0. Well, the thing is, he really shouldn't be regretting losing on time, as his position was already lost. For example, here, after f6, Black would win tons of material, as White would be forced to go queen takes f6, then knight c6, rook takes c6, queen d5, and after king f4, Black simply picks up everything. Rook f6, the king moves somewhere, then we can even take on c6, and it is too much to handle. It's a full extra queen, right? Anyway, it was a beautiful game for Richard Rapport, so let's give him a round of applause and move on to our next game of the recap. In our next game, we have one of the big upsets of round 5. Here as white, we have Montenegro's Denis Kadric as he takes on Germany's Vincent Keymer. This win was not only a huge personal success for Denis, but it also brought his team the victory. Let's take a look. In this position, it is clear to see that white is trying to go for checkmate. His queen is on h6, the rook on d3 is ready to swing to g3 at any point, and the rook on e1 is also super active. The fact that white is down a piece is simply irrelevant, as the knight from a5 cannot possibly make it to the defense on time. Here, Denis played a fabulous move to continue his attack. He unleashed the move rook e7, seemingly giving up a rook for free. The problem is that simply Vincent cannot accept it, as after rook to e7, rook g3, king f7, the game would end with checkmate, queen to g6. Seeing all of that, the German star tried another approach. He played the move rook f to f7, defending the rook on g7. The problem was that this also wins to a forced win for white. The game continued with rook to e8 check, rook f8, and rook g3. Let's take a moment to appreciate the beauty of this position. The rook on e8 is hanging, the other pair of rook is also facing each other, and there's simply nothing for black to do? I mean, after rook to e8, the game would end with queen g7 mate, rook g3 would run into rook f8 mate, and if black tries to run with king f7, then queen h5 ends the game on the spot. What a beautiful win for Denis Kadric, and what a fantastic way to bring the victory to Team Montenegro. Let's give him a round of applause and let's jump into the women's section. In the women's section, even fewer teams managed to keep a perfect score. It is only 3 of them that are standing on 5 out of 5 victories, and that is Team India, Team Armenia, and Team Mongolia. While we always expect great things of Team India as they are the top seed, Team Armenia and Team Mongolia can be considered somewhat of dark horses. To get to where they are, both teams had to pull off an upset win or two, and today was no exception. Team Armenia upset heavyweights Team China, and Team Mongolia overcame the star-studded American team. In other important matches of the day, Azerbaijan tied their match versus Ukraine, and underdogs Uzbekistan almost continued their run as they were close to a draw versus second seed Team Georgia. Let's go check out the games. We are going to begin our overview of the women's section with a game from the China versus Armenia match. As white, we have experienced player and international master Anna Sargsyan, and as black we have one of China's most promising prodigies, 13-year-old Lu Miao. Prior to this round, both players have been on perfect 4 out of 4 scores. Let's take a look at how their game went. Here, we can see that white is down on exchange. However, in return for that, she has a strong attack on the black king. Therefore, the conflict is whether the black king would make it all the way to safety on the queen side or not. So, in her last move, Anna played the move rook to d3, preventing this idea with king d7, king c8 from happening. Keep in mind that the rook on d3 is invincible, as if black takes it with queen d3, there would be knight g7 check, picking up the queen on the next move. In the game, Lu Miao insisted on bringing the king to the queen side, and she played the move king to d7. However, there was a devious trick Anna had prepared. She played the beautiful discovered attack knight to e6 check, counting on the fact that if queen d3, there will be knight c5, forking the king and the queen. That's why Lu Miao instead took the knight. The game went on with king takes e6, rook to d8, and queen f4. Now here, we have to appreciate that in this position, white is not even down material anymore. She just has a powerful attack for free. I mean, the black pawn on a5 doesn't really matter, as how can it possibly promote when the black king is attacked by a rook, a knight, and a queen? It's impossible. So here, in this position, Anna played the move knight to g3, saving her king and the knight from the attack. Game went on with rook e5, consolidating and protecting against the rook e8 check. And here Anna played a beautiful quiet move. She moved her queen all the way back to c2, with the idea that she would attack the knight and also find a better spot from where to access the black king. After knight b4, she took queen c7, threatening queen d6 or queen d7 checkmate. Lu Miao played the move rook to e4, protecting the d6 square and offering a trade of queens. However, after queen d7 check, the Chinese player resigned as she had missed that in case of king e5, queen d6 would be checkmate. This was a very important game and probably one of the most important matches of the round. Congratulations to Team Armenia on achieving this huge victory, and let's jump to the next game. Here we have a game from the Azerbaijan versus Ukraine match. This is board 1, and we have international master Gyonai Mammadzada as she takes on another international master, Yulia Osmak from Ukraine. Let's see how their game went. Only a couple seconds are needed to figure out that this is not what white had hoped for out of the opening. Black has a monster knight on f4, an active bishop on g5, and full control of the d-file. All of this came rise to a beautiful tactical shot as Yulia Osmak played the move rook to d2, attacking the white queen. The catch is that, in case of queen d2, Black would win the game with knight h3, discover the attack, and pick up the queen on d2. That's why Gyunai tried to find another safe place for her queen, and she played the move queen to e4. The game continued bishop d5, further persecuting the white queen and defending the b7 pawn. And here, Gyunai played the move queen takes e5. Unfortunately, even though the queen is in the center, it is still very prone to attacking from the black pieces. The game went on with f6, protecting the g5 bishop and putting the queen again under attack. The problem is that here, the queen simply has nowhere to escape to. In case of queen d6, we would see rook d8, forcing the queen back to the e-file, where after queen e7, rook e8, black would be able to pick up the bishop for free and win in a matter of moves. Or we can see what happened in the game, as white immediately went for the move queen to e7. The result was the same as black played the move rook to e8, and here, desperate to find the trick, white played the move queen takes to e8, counting on the discovered attack that comes with bishop b5. The problem is that once the black queen moves, there is no continuation for white. So the game saw queen h5, rook e8, king f7, and finally, white admitted that she has no way to continue the game and simply resigned. This game sealed the 2-2 result in the match Azerbaijan versus Ukraine and kept both teams in relatively good standings for the second half of the Olympiad. Let's wish them luck and jump to our final game from the women's section. In our last game of the women's section, we are going to take a break from sacrifices and take a look at an endgame win instead. Here we have the game from the USA versus Mongolia match, and as white we have woman grandmaster Munkhzul as she takes on international master Tokhirjonova. In this position, it is important for white to realize that she shouldn't let the black king get in front of the pawn. That's why there is only one idea that gives white a winning position. That is the move rook to d8. After this, the black king is cut off and the black rook will be forced to fight the c4 pawn on its own. The game continued with king to e6, king b4, rook h1, king b5. It's again super important for the white king to be helping the white pawn. King to e7, sorry. And here, white had a final important decision to make. She had to decide where to move the rook, as if the rook moved away from the d-file, the position would be a draw after king d7, as the king makes it in front of the pawn. That's why the Mongolian player played the move rook to d2, keeping this barrier intact for the black king. The game saw the move rook to b1, and it turned out that here the black player played her move after her clock had already shown 0-0. Still, this position shouldn't have been a big problem for white to convert anyway, as all the heavy lifting has already been done. The game could have continued with something along the lines of king c6, rook c1, c5, king to e8, king to b6. Eventually, the pawn is going to make it to c7 without too much trouble. And here we would get to another theoretical famous position. This is called Lucena's position. White has only one problem to solve, as she would need to move the king away from in front of the pawn, and then on the next move she would simply promote it. The challenge here is that white currently doesn't have a square for the white king. The b-file is taken from the rook, and the d8 and d7 square are taken by the black king. Still, this doesn't appear to be too great of a difficulty, as already on the next move, white can push the black king further away with rook e2, and then perform a famous maneuver, put the rook on the 4th rank, preparing the escape of the white king. So let's say in this position, black plays rook b1, we're going to have king d7, rook d1 check, king to c6, rook to c1, king d6, and if there is another check, white can come all the way to c5, because if rook c1 follows, we would have the rook c4 blocking the way and promoting the pawn on the next move. That was all for this round. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next videos here on ICC.